Tick, 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 tick. Jimmy Garoppolo trade incoming. We're waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting. What do we think about the Jimmy Garoppolo market in the moment after the Carson Wentz trade? 2/3 for Carson, conditional third could become a second.
I mean, you have had the last 2 years, two guys start every single game. And both of them, Rivers was headed the wrong way. Carson was a weird guy. But they started 16, 32, 33 games, right? And actually more because Phillips started a playoff game, so 34 games. How could you trade for a guy, even if it was cheap, that you're still going to have to pay $27 million for? So even if I gave up a fifth, I got to pay $27 million for an injured guy? Like, I know people keep saying it. People keep tweeting it. Like, I don't know, man. Could you do that?
Well, I go back to this. Like, I think the short answer to what you just said is no. The long answer is, well, what are my other options? And who else would be interested? And who else might do what I'm not willing to do?
Well, how much they would have to have some options to pull the trigger on this today, right? They have to have, like, whatever their contingency plan. They're not just pulling the trigger and then not having a plan.
Who?
The Colts.
Oh, well, I think that I said it, and some people on Twitter were like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I'm just telling you what I believe to be what I know to be a fact. I think one of their options is Nick Foles because they like him. He's on the Bears.
Yeah.
So it would cost them nothing, right? Nick is owed money. The Bears aren't just going to cut him, but they'd be happy to trade him and save themselves some money.
So what could they get for him, like a 6th-round pick or something?
Whatever, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't matter. It used to be that Indy would have to restructure his deal because they had Carson, but they don't have Carson anymore. So they don't have to worry about Nick Foles' $10 million. Would have been insane to acquire that during the year. Now it's not crazy.
Is he as good as Carson Wentz guy?
Now you could argue, yeah, but that's not exactly the math that Indy's playing, right? Part of it is like, how good are you? Part of it is how much can we trust you? Part of it is, can you just do what we're telling you to do? Because we think we can run the ball and play defense and all that other stuff. Now, I agree with you.
Besides some of his runs in Philly, he does some weird things.
Oh, well, he is more of a freestyle guy. People don't think of him that way. You're right, because he's not a great athlete, and he doesn't play necessarily. But, yeah, when they get down is when fun stuff happens with Nick Foles.
Yeah, he's not anyway, like Mr. just dick and dunk. Like, hey, I'll just
I'm not saying he's their number one option. I'm just saying that I think he is an option.
I think he makes sense there.
Rap Sheet said it. We did a video about it on the podcast Tuesday. And Rap Sheet said there's interest from the Colts and Jimmy Garoppolo, or at least there's a match there. I think it makes a lot of sense. But to go back to your initial question, part of this is like, well, what's Pittsburgh going to do, right? Denver, we know, is now done. We know that Washington football team, who had been a Jimmy destination, is done.
Packers are set.
Packers are set. Deshaun's kind of out there. Seahawks are not an option for Jimmy. So we don't think. Doesn't match. So
would you trade him there for a fourth if that was your best option?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how to play him.
I mean, Belichick sent multiple guys to the Bills.
Why not? Whatever. So especially if it was like $27 million. But I think part of it is like, how many guys are out there? What are you willing to do? Is Pittsburgh willing to do it? And are you willing to do it? And if you're both willing to do it, then somebody's got to do something that, makes them uncomfortable, which is acquire a player. Now, you get your doctor, look at his shoulder. One of my questions is with Washington. And just answer me as we go through this scenario. Commandos. If they had offered the Niners the Wentz trade, would the Niners have accepted that for Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yes.
Right. So did they value...
No contingency. 2/3? Deal.
Yeah. Did they value Carson Wentz more than they valued Jimmy Garoppolo?
1,000%.
Would they have traded Would they have preferred to trade less for Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think, though, we got to take a step back. Carson, as of March 9th, is a more valuable player when their money is very similar and one guy's healthy and one guy's hurt.
True. But I also think Jimmy, it might have been that Carson Wentz said, yeah, football team, don't worry. I'm happy to whatever you guys need. I'd rather be there than here. Don Yee might have told Washington he doesn't want to be there. We think there's better options for him out there. He doesn't want to be there. And Washington was like, fine, whatever. But 2/3, the Niners would have taken 1/3 for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think. So there's the potential that the Colts traded Carson Wentz and in return got more than they will then have to send to the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes.
And they're going to get a quarterback they want more for less than what they just sold Carson Wentz. It'd be an interesting, as a few people on Twitter have noted, Chris Ballard getting a lot of love. He'd get a lot of love for that one.
Where would he get a lot of love if he did what deal?
Unloaded Carson, got more for Carson than it took one of those thirds and sent one of those thirds to the 49ers.
You think Jimmy Garoppolo's getting a third round pick?
No, my point is he would get whatever it is he's going to pay the Niners for Jimmy is going to be less than what he is going to buy Jimmy with some of the change from his Carson Wentz trade.
Do you think if right now there was a 4th round pick from the Colts on the table, Jimmy Garoppolo would still be on the team?
The answer to that should be no. I don't think he'd be on the team. I think they'd take it, but
they got a couple days. They got a couple days to wait.
We just watched Washington give a third and a conditional third for a guy that we know the team that had him didn't want. It's similar.
Has not missed a game in multiple years. Physically more gifted. Think about this guy. Jimmy missed 6 games in 20. He missed 2.5 he's missed 8.5 games in 2 seasons. Carson's 0 games. 8.5. Yeah. And he's got surgery currently. I mean, there's a lot going on with Jimmy Garoppolo's old body. Beside from the flawed play, with Carson has too. To me is the separating factor.
I will say,
Carson tore an ACL, so was Jimmy.
Let me add a third person to this equation, which is Don Yee, right? Because we always talk about the two teams. There's the two teams talking. The Niners and not the Niners. Don Yee and Jimmy had to be really, really confident, like extremely confident that this surgery was going to go well, to delay it, or try rehab, right? I think they had to feel like, now part of it, as we talked about the other day, it benefit them to not be able to get a trade because then you'll just have to cut me. But I think they had to feel like they knew kind of what was out there in order to play this game, because you do run the risk that recovery takes longer than you think, and then you're not ready for the season, and you're definitely not getting signed if nobody thinks. Because here's the thing, if you're Don Yee, you would say, right?
Jimmy, do not go to the waste management. We cannot have you filmed when you're supposed to be rehabbing. He's like shirt off, shots with chicks,
Jimmy shot a commercial down in Southern California the other day before his surgery for Travis Matthew.
I do wonder, everyday life, like me and you had the injury, you wouldn't notice as much, to throw the football, right?
Sure. But think about, just play out the conspiracy theory that Don Yee postponed surgery to get cut. If Don Yee postponed surgery to get cut, Don Yee would still have to get Jimmy on a team after they cut him. So let's say he said, I'm getting cut. We're out of here, Jimmy. They're not going to be able to trade you. They cut him on March 16th, okay? Or March 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
He still wants to sign on March 17th or March 16th, right? Don Yee doesn't want to wait until July 4th to sign with the team.
Most amount of money available that day, yeah.
So he's got to be confident, trade or cut, that teams are going to be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo while he is rehabbing his shoulder.
Yes.
And I got to think that he knew that teams would still be okay if he got a doctor to say everything went fine, that Don Yee knows that there would be teams interested in Jimmy Garoppolo even if he's rehabbing his shoulder surgery.
Because don't you imagine, from March 16th, by the time we get to March 20th, there'll probably be $850 million spent. So there's all this money available, and it's all going to disappear in a short period of time, at least the majority of it. So you're right. He's going to want to pounce. The other thing, though, with pouncing is your options. It's a little different. He can control where he goes right now, and he might okay a trade to a place or decline a trade to a place that if he was a free agent, he actually might sign with because they might offer the most money, right? It'd be complete. It's like two different avenues. Right now, he's on one street, and it has a direct kind of route, and he kind of knows the homes that he's driving by. If he is released, I would say the street changes. You might give in to hey, the New York Giants are going to offer you $20 million. I'll tell you, you're basically starting Daniel Jones. You'll have to compete, but you're going to win the job. It's like you might be open to things that you would not okay right now. I just think your mindset's a lot different because, I control the trade. I'll get you. When you're a free agent, I'd say there's a little more desperation because part of controlling the trade is we're getting paid no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll restructure a little bit to go 22, 23. You're a free agent. It's like, hey, Jimmy, we'll give you $15 million and incentivize another 10. You're like, I was used to making 27. So I do think it's not a slippery slope, but there's just these couple. This is when Don Yee is really making his money. He's never had to deal with this with Tom. Honestly, he's never had to deal with this with Jimmy, right? He was all with the New England, gets traded, immediately signs.
But Don Yee didn't only represent Tom. Like, he's represented other players.
But I'm just saying,
years.
he's never had but those are his two most expensive clients. You get quarterback money. Like, this is, I would say the next 48 hours is just a big Jimmy Garoppolo career moment, right? Because I would say by the time we get to Sunday, you expect, like, we're recording this, we're talking on Wednesday. Do you think we go into the weekend without knowing anything on Jimmy Garoppolo where he's getting traded? Because everyone keeps saying, and I
you said early tampering is Sunday, right?
Well, obviously it's out the window with these trades, right?
No, I know. I'm just saying, just to back up, just so people understand the timeline, the early tampering window starts legal on Sunday.
But see,
so it makes a lot of sense that we would know.
But he's not a free agent. Like, you're dealing with trades. You can do that right now. Like, technically, I can't talk to Lakeland Tomlinson or offer him a deal right now. Right? We could just talk numbers, but I can't give you a contract. Like, you can do everything you need to do with Jimmy because you're just doing it's a separate transaction.
Yeah, you good point. I mean, unless he were to get cut, then he would need to know, but they wouldn't cut him before.
Well, if he did, quote unquote, let's say he got cut today, you're right, they wouldn't cut him before. But if he did, like Amari Cooper, would immediately be eligible to talk because he's the vested veteran. Like, he's in this weird class. But as you see with Amari, like, Dallas was trying to get people to call. Like, they haven't cut Amari,
Right.
like that was a plant. Like, the one thing, the Niners haven't really planted anything with Jimmy besides, like, maybe today, like, Colts are interested. They might be, but they might not be. But there definitely are just some quarterbackless teams that Jimmy still has value. I don't have a great feel. Like, if you told me I wouldn't say a mystery team, but if you're like, they ended up okaying a trade. They were able to unload Sam Darnold, and he's on the Panthers right now because they picked up his full salary. Like, I could believe something like that because Don Yee was like, hey, Jimmy, this is the only place we're going to make $27 million.
Right.
Because I think we both agree if they had to go worst case and cut him, he's not getting $27 million. Honestly, injured, it feels like 15.
Not for 1 year. I could see him getting 2 years that add up to that. For that,
I have a hard time seeing the 2 years once the surgery thing came out. What I think you'd want to do is like 13 to 15 it and then heavily incentivize it where it's like, hey, man, you throw some touchdowns, you go to the playoffs, you can make 30. We'll treat you like a legit starting quarterback.
But don't you think, even with a surgery, if he's a free agent, somebody would give him more than 1 year?
No.
Even if it's sometimes
8.5 games the last 2 years. He's injured all the time.
I know, but to me, you make it 2 years, $35 million, $20 million guaranteed, or 18 guaranteed. So it's basically a 1 year contract.
I just would be like, well, we'd have to eat a couple $1 million the following year if it goes poorly. Why would we want to even do that? Who are we bidding against? Because I think that's the question with Wentz. Like, who are they bidding against?
Well, a trade is interesting. I mean, I do think that you can justify if you're Pittsburgh, you can justify if you're Indy, if Jimmy's a free agent signing Jimmy Garoppolo.
What I wonder,
maybe you just make something like, hey, the contract voids if you can't pass a physical by, July 31st.
What I wonder with GMs, and I'd be fascinated to ask someone, like, let's say the Saints are like, hey, man, we'll give you a fifth. And they're like, hey, we'd love to trade him to you, but we need your fourth because we have a fourth on the table. It's not as good as your fourth. Would you start calling around to teams that you think might be interested and be like, are you offering them a fourth? Or would you just, like, gut feel it?
I gotta think that's based on relationships, right? If you've got people you can trust to ask that question to.
Yeah. Like, hey,
are you know who you ask? Schefter.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's why he gets the information. Because he knows.
It's an exchange. It's a two-way street. Or you ask Schrager, depending on which coach it is.
Yeah, if it's the McVay-Shanahan tree, get all the information.
Schrager's like, hold on, I got them both right here.
I do think the 2 year deal with Jimmy went out the window the moment he got the surgery. I think if he was fully healthy, I agree. He'd get the 2 year, $38 million or something.
But don't you think it can be fake? It's a fake 2 year. It's a pass the physical. The second year's not guaranteed.
Well, it is fake, but you put the money technically in the back year because you want to make it cheaper this year to operate, and you're kind of setting yourself up that, like, if it does go poorly, you cut them, and you're like, you want to just take a $10 million dead cap hit next year for Jimmy?
Well, you don't want to, but Wentz just got traded for a third and a conditional third.
I know, but Wentz is healthy and he's just physically more gifted.
I get it, but if you had told me Wentz got traded for 1/3, I'd go, okay, that makes sense.
I think health is an underrated thing that he's brought to the table the last couple of years.
Well,
8.5 games Jimmy's missed. 8.5.
I know. I know.
And we're not even counting the 3. He played in 3 starts, 16. He missed 12 starts in a season.
And said he didn't miss for one injury. It's multiple injuries.